I've never felt so voyeuristic while doing research before. At one point I realized I was watching this man, watch this man, watch this man, watch this man. Let's get some more in here. At this rate, we're just a couple more dudes watching dudes away from world peace. Say hello to Ross Scott. He's leading the charge on the Stop Killing Games initiative. On the screen you can see his own words spelling out the movement. In plain speak, the petition's to try and get the EU government to take a closer look at publishers that are selling video games or selling stuff in video games and then taking it all away. This is not a draft bill or any attempt at legislation, but rather an attempt to try to get the conversation started amongst politicians. If you're a resident of the EU or the UK, then the links will be in the description. The UK petition has only until the 15th of July, and the EU petition ends at the end of July. It's kind of close, but there's been a massive surge of activity following the last 8 days. 8 days ago, the UK petition was at 15,000, and the EU petition was at 400,000. This new wave of support is most likely because Ross finally decided to take off the gloves and address how big streamer and content creator Pirate Software misrepresented the initiative.
His ego is so out of control, I feel like he's only a week or two away from exclusively referring to himself in third person, like Stone Cold fucking Steve Austin. And that's the truth, cause Pirate Software said so.
Am I a little bit angry at Pirate Software for misrepresenting this initiative and still constantly becoming the lightning rod for just not, presenting it in a good faith manner? Yes, absolutely.
Someone like Pirate Software has gone out and done a horrible video on it, misrepresenting what it is, giving a ton of misinformation and actually kind of killing the initiative from the get-go, and then just being very egotistical about it, not saying sorry and really opening up to it and being like, shit, my bad, and then fixing any of the things that he said were wrong about it. It's a fucking mess.
Pirate Software, once again, is responding to criticism. Multiple creators have been calling him out for how he's misrepresented the movement, Charlie, Mudahar, and more. Yet, instead of engaging in good faith, he's chosen to triple down, inventing demands that were never mentioned in the original Accursed Farms video. He's taken to Twitter to paint himself a victim, calling the criticism dogpiling, while once again fixating on the vague language that was contained within the initiative and pretending like a petition is a formal legislative proposal rather than what it actually is, a grassroots call for consumer protection.
I will mention that in passing from time to time, but I don't want to make this video about Pirate Software. I want to make this video about you and why you should support the initiative, because it comes down, to me at least, to plain and simple consumer rights. And I don't mean the modern mutation of consumerism that leaves your shopping cart fat, your wallet thin, and your brain starving for dopamine. To me, it's about creating an even playing field for both buyers and sellers. Yes, both. If the buyers are too powerful, then no one will sell anything. If the sellers are too powerful, they end up owning the buyers. One should not be allowed to get the upper hand over the other. And for that, you need a referee, the government. And as far as digital ownership is concerned, the referee needs to wake up and get with the times. Let's start with the rights that I think are most definitely being infringed on. The most blatant one is a buyer's right to be informed. Milk has an expiration date. I know when a Netflix subscription ends, my vacuum comes with a 90-day warranty. These are all things I am made aware of before I make a purchase. In contrast, video games are shy and downplay their potential deal breakers. In my opinion, this whole fiasco could be avoided if a game that has the risk of being made unavailable one day stated it loud and clear. But the industry doesn't want better signage because it might cost them sales. As an example, if I buy Black Ops 6 from Sony, the store page says online play required and PS Plus required for online play. Helldivers 2 also says online play required and PS Plus required for online play. These two games are sold in the exact same way, but do not have the same online needs. If I don't have internet or the servers go down, I can still play the campaign, zombies, or multiplayer with bots on Black Ops 6. But Helldivers 2 is completely left at the mercy of my connection to the servers. I'm not saying there shouldn't be Helldivers 2. I'm not saying there shouldn't be games that can only be played online. I'm not demonizing live service games, nor is this even exclusive to live service games. They're just more vulnerable right now. My ideal, bare minimum ask is that there needs to be better signage. Now to get into the rights that are maybe not being infringed upon, but are becoming murky. Stuff that we can't really agree is or isn't a violation of consumer rights, but needs to be re-looked at. And for that, I present to you digital ownership as a whole. This is one spot where conversation spins its wheels because online consumerism has evolved faster than commerce laws can adapt. In the terms of service of any video game, you will undoubtedly find a line somewhere that says you are not buying a video game, You are buying a license to play a video game that can be revoked for any reason whatsoever at any point in time. Again, the biggest thing for me there is it's a transparency issue. I'd like that front and center on the cover and in the game store instead of behind the dumpster in the back alley where no one reads it. I also don't like this idea that terms of services can be amended at any point in time after purchase, and your only choices are either consent or lose access. Keep in mind that this is not universal. Terms of service does not beat law. And some people might show up and say, well, it's because there's so many licenses in video games. There were licenses in video games before. Respectfully, I disagree. I believe that this is the effect, not the cause. General audiences didn't ask for licensing culture. The industry either chose to deal this way or gave up their bargaining power and assumed the money could be made up on the consumer side. Unity tried to pull some licensing shenanigans, and the developers made it quite clear that for as much as they liked the game engine, they were not going to put up with the new terms. So the terms were walked back. That is how you send feedback for change. Too many people, as soon as they hear they're getting a raw deal, walk away from the table or just tank it to the face. So nothing changes because companies only get feedback from people with more money than spine or people who aren't their customer base. Here's the magic words. I like your product, but I don't like your business. This sends a signal that there is money to be made with some negotiations. We don't know what can and can't be negotiated because the last 10 plus years have just been go, go, go. And the industry now is relying on that trajectory withstanding. It's a catch-22. We need Stop Killing Games to sort out old problems, but we can't talk about Stop Killing Games without getting caught up in old problems. But if we're not being stalled out by old problems, we're also being stalled out by new, future, hypothetical problems on the developer side. As I said before, there is a massive cloud of drama surrounding this campaign because of Pirate Software, but he is not the only developer who's against the Stop Killing Games initiative. A quick example here is Chet Felizek, one of the writers for Half-Life, Portal, and Left 4 Dead. And I myself have spoken with multiple developers who were initially against the initiative, and then they changed their minds when we talked it out some more. I'm not defending Pirate Software. I think his opinion is valid, and it makes sense if it's the first opinion you heard on the matter. Respectfully, it has nothing to do with the context of Stop Killing Games. I know people like Legendary Drops think Pirate Software's take on Stop Killing Games is so wrong that he believes Pirate Software is doing it intentionally. Maybe he is, but when multiple people are independently coming to the same conclusions, it makes me consider there's either something wrong with the language of the initiative that makes developers uncomfortable, or maybe the experience of being a game developer makes them see from a different perspective that non-developers cannot. But we'll never know unless we listen, and here's the points I heard. One of the biggest fears by far is that developers might become prisoners to games that they are forced to keep alive. Well, it's not the Keep Games Alive campaign, nor is it the Stop Games from Dying campaign. It's the Stop Killing Games campaign. It's a purposeful and intentional removal that the initiative is against. As the quote goes, specifically, the initiative seeks to prevent the remote disabling of video games by the publishers before providing reasonable means to continue functioning of said video games without the involvement from the side of the publisher. And the definition of reasonable of a person having sound judgment, fair and sensible, as much as is appropriate or fair, moderate. A reasonable attempt to hand the game off to players is all that's being asked for, a try. You warn the players the game could disappear one day, you try your best, that's it. The gaming Gestapo isn't going to break into your house in the middle of the night and force you to keep the game running at gunpoint. Your great-great-grandchildren won't be forced to hold up the crumbling infrastructure of Left 4 Dead 2. And most importantly, this, like many initiatives, will not apply retroactively. You won't be made to pay alimony for abandoning your past works. The second anti-SKG point is the amount of work a developer has to put in ahead of time to put in an end-of-life plan. It could be daunting and restrict what gets made, or maybe they'd have to give up something they couldn't hand over. Usually this train of thought ends up with a lot of assumptions that you have to leave a video game as good as the game was at its peak. Going back to Chet Falazek, he believes if a game had matchmaking to begin with, it should always have matchmaking to preserve a game's spirit, and that would take a lot of work to keep that service up. That's not what it's asking for. And personally, I don't think a game needs to be maintained with all the bells and whistles it operated on while it was alive. Pirate Software made it seem as if Stop Killing Games would force online multiplayer games to be rebalanced and converted to single player, but I think that is assuming too much, if not just flat out ridiculous. SKG anticipates a lesser version of a game would be all that's left accessible, and that's fine. Effectively, games would become museums for themselves, and each genre or game would have to figure out what that means for itself. If it's an MMO, maybe you're only left with the starting area. But who am I to say? I don't play that many MMOs. Let the MMO community weigh in on that. This is a group effort. Talk to Josh Strife Hayes or anyone not me about MMOs. If it's a MOBA, specifically Smite, I'd like to at least be left with the training area and let me access the skins I purchased, because SKG doesn't apply to free-to-play games at all, unless they sold microtransactions. But again, it doesn't apply retroactively, so my purchases would be gone. Is any of this really that different from keeping an antique car or sealed comic books? No one holds on to those for practical reasons. It's sentimental. And the appreciating value, sure, but that's another topic. And the final big point from developers that I will push back on is the idea that regulations impede creative liberties. The government shouldn't dictate what gets put into a video game because they're censoring art, man. This might sound harsh, but to that I say your rights as a creative are different from your rights as a seller. You can make whatever you want just for you, but it's when you wish to enter a market that the rules of said market apply. Should predatory loot boxes be allowed simply because a developer deems it crucial to their artistic vision? Banksy, is that you? If you're turning your art into a commercial product, then there are commercial rules. This is nothing new nor exclusive to video games. And finally, after all this, there is still the big floating question for the undecided or the apathetic. Why should I care about any of this? I'm not asking you to care. I'm just asking you to sign. Ross cares. You don't have to. And you don't want to get to the position where you personally have to care, because that means you lost a game. It impacted you. If you're asking for stronger examples than games like The Crew, then what you're asking for is what I would call the perfect victim. That's when the right person gets hurt in just the right way, and then that moves legislation along. You're asking for a martyr, essentially. Are you volunteering? Is that what I'm hearing? But why would you wait until your house is on fire to buy fire insurance? I am presenting you a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to care a little now, so you don't have to care a lot later. I speak apathy. I'm a millennial. I know what it's like to feel like everything feels like a chore. My check engine light's been on for as long as I've had my car. You have to brush your teeth every day, because otherwise they just cause you grief. You have to plan meals, buy groceries, and cook like 3 times a day, and for what? Just to defecate? Again? And now you're being asked to fill out forms. And the very least we could do is make it sound exciting or relevant. It's not exciting. It is relevant. This initiative, from a preventative standpoint, is as good as it's gonna get with minimal casualties. If it doesn't pass, then the next time we have this conversation will be because it became more relevant, more exciting, and more bad things happen to you. We saw this exact same process happen with the refund systems and early access programs, so I have full faith that this is going to happen either now, when you're not bothered, or later, when you are bothered. Think of it this way, from one unbothered to another. I would rather be a signature on a petition than be a plaintiff or a victim.